I don't think I don't think I fear change anymore. Whereas I think I'm quite adaptable. I think I'm quite resilient to stuff. But that's not a natural thing. I have worked on that in the past. I've tried to understand, you know, I do like routine. I love routine. I think it's the best way to stay consistent. It's how I train. It's how I eat. It's how I do a lot of things is in that routine side. But now I'm able to react to change better. But it's around. I think it's just being able to change the journey, change the route.
Hi everyone. Hi Craig. Welcome to the How Change Changes You podcast, and here on YouTube for those who are tuning in on that platform. How are you doing today, Craig?
Yeah, really, really good. Had a good day so far. So yeah,
Good.
brilliant. How about
Great.
you?
Yeah, really, really well. Thank you. Yeah, it's I feel like spring is in the air.
It's getting there. It's getting there.
Yeah, it definitely is. So today we're going to be talking about very much physical and mental health. And Craig's going to be talking about his journey along lots of different types of training, actually. So before we get into all of that, Craig, would you like to tell the lovely people listening or watching who you are, where you're from, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, thanks. So I'm Craig Stephenson. I've recently kind of set up a website called the Total Coach, which is around physical and mental health, but it's a bit of a side that I do at the moment. I'm currently a commercial manager for a civil engineering company, but I also do PT work in the background. I became a PT probably, I'm going to say about 9 years ago, I think it was. And that came off the back of I do a lot of sport, always have done, and I've decided, I want to know more about this. And it wasn't really with the intention of becoming a personal trainer. It was with the intention of gaining a bit more knowledge, so I knew what I was doing. So I did the course. It was an intensive course, became a qualified PT. And one of my friends actually has a personal training company, and he asked us to come along, cover a few sessions, get involved, and I kind of picked up the PT role off the back of there and got involved and started doing some work with him. And it's been, I think it's probably been one of the biggest things that's changed in my life, I think, because dealing with people on a one-to-one basis, seeing them improve, seeing me improve, it's been great. And then that alongside my day-to-day job, the commercial manager role, I lead a team of 22 project managers, which has grown from about 3 project managers to 22 in the last 18 months. So yeah, quite a busy time. I've got a family as well, 2 kids, so I've got to try and keep them happy and busy as well, which is a challenge. So yeah, a little bit of a quick summary of my my background.
No, thank you for sharing. Yeah, you pack a lot in. We've talked about this.
Yeah,
You definitely do. And I think what we were focusing on, isn't it, if like, we all face change in loads of different ways. And I think to your point, what's been really interesting when we've talked, and obviously what we'll share for people listening, is to really embrace the changes and to kind of know that that is going to make life fuller and different, and you're going to enter into different chapters. But it's interesting, isn't it, what you say about something you've always been into sport, and then having that decision. I mean, that's quite a pivotal decision, isn't it, to say, actually, I'm going to invest my time in personal training qualification to deepen my own knowledge. And then look what's come out of it. It's almost been an unexpected bonus in a way.
Yeah, absolutely. When I did the course, it was around, I thought I knew everything, as you do when you've done sport for so many years. I was kind of, this is dead easy, it's brilliant, but I want to learn a bit more. And I was never great at biology at school, so the anatomy part of it was quite a challenge for me. But the things I learned from that course, and actually, I think one of the biggest things I took out of that course was the course leader. He was probably one of the most inspirational people I've spoken to. And I still stay in touch with him now, just off and on. But he really inspired me to want to sort of bring my knowledge and help other people, rather than just helping myself. So I went in there with a view of, that this is about grow my own knowledge, which was great because it really did help. But then I also thought, well, this could go elsewhere. And then when the opportunity came up to help my friend, it was a big step because I was never great one-to-one with people. you know, it's still a challenge now. I have to really put a lot of energy into it, because I think it's a case of, for me, it's, you know, I know this, but why would they want to listen to me about it? But over the years, I've realized, you know, I do have quite an in-depth knowledge on a lot of things, a lot of the background, and people, they want to know it, they want to listen, they want to grow, and I love seeing that. I really, it's one of the best things in my life is seeing someone succeed. And it could be the absolutely smallest thing. It could be one exercise that somebody thinks that they can't do that, and then you work with them and they do it, and honestly, the look on their face and how they feel, it's one of the most rewarding things I think, you know, you can probably do, is just seeing that real, off the back of what you've done and how you've supported them, and you know, you've made a difference to them. And I think I wouldn't say recently, but it's part of what I would want to leave a legacy in, is to have people think, well, you know, he made a difference, you know, whether it be physically, whether it be mentally, whatever that might be. Knowing Craig has made a difference in my life, and it's, you know, for me, and that might sound quite selfish, but I think if I can help, you know, if I can help one person, brilliant. If I can help hundreds of people, great, and whatever happens from there, you never know. So it's, I think, you know, that people grow is such a powerful thing.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think to see somebody overcome something and step into their power, you know, is just, and I don't know, I think with you sharing that, what comes up for me is like being of service. I think when you give yourself permission to really immerse yourself in something that really is a passion for you and you get a lot out of it, then it's almost like you're filling your cup up so much that you can't help but give it to other people. And isn't it wonderful that, you know, this guy who taught you in the personal training just like planted a seed of like, yeah, this is your knowledge and it's for you and it's amazing, but what are you then going to do with it? So what I heard when you said that and what I visualized was this beautiful ripple effect of, this is helping me, but this has the potential to help everyone that I come into contact with. It's huge.
Oh, it is, and it's not even in the PT world. Just that, you know, the skill sets I've learned through that, and being able to be myself with these people as well, and get it across in my own relatively simple way, maybe. But I'm also able to take that into my day job as well, and it might not be around PT, but it's around being able to coach and support and bring people on and get, you know, the team I've got at work now are brilliant, and I think being able to bring the skill sets across there, it ripples across all aspects of your life, whether it be directly one-to-one in the PT work, whether it's at work in the civil engineering business, whether it's just out and about with friends. You know, it's that kind of impact that you can have just by sharing your knowledge and trying to understand where other people are at.
Yeah, no, I love that so much, because I think it's a way of being, it's a way of seeing life, isn't it? Because, and it's so interesting to me how it's like one experience can plant so many seeds of like, hold on, that you know, the training environment and seeing people get stronger and fitter and actually see that, oh no, I can do this, I am capable, and you're part of that inspiration, you're part of that support system, then going, well, actually it's not that much of a leap to have a young project manager, for example, doubt themselves, and you use that same mindset stuff to kind of go, oh, I'm going to plant seeds here and then watch them blossom as well. It's like,
yeah, absolutely. And it might sound, you know, might sound daft, but my ultimate goal is that these guys don't train with me for very long. You know, ultimately you want them to be able to learn and take that on themselves. A lot of them do, and probably more in the PT world. I think because you get that continuous change and that continuous momentum. In the project management world, I want the project managers to learn to be able to deliver jobs themselves. So ultimately, me as a leader within that team, you know, I after a while, I should never get involved at all. The idea is that those guys are absolutely, you know, self-sufficient. That you know, they create a community amongst themselves, and they're delivering that work with the trust from myself. And that really does work. And you know, the team we've got to do that, you know, they become that way where I have very little input unless they really need that ultimate support. But you know, I don't micromanage people, and you can't do that in the PT world. You can't do it in the civils world either.
Yeah, and I love what you said there, because it's the pivotal part of empowerment. Because I think as a coach, I think you know, our gift is seeing the potential in others and mirroring it back to them. And so they then feel it and believe it in themselves to kind of go, oh, I am going to reach for that next project or that next weight or that next rep or whatever that may be, because it then it's almost that I'm going to believe in you when you don't believe in you. And then that creates that little incremental, like that change, that momentum builds. And then you kind of can celebrate with them to say, you did that. I helped you. Yeah. Okay. I supported you, but you ultimately did that, because to your point, it's not about like our ego, really. It's a win-win of, yeah, I want to see you succeed. And that makes me feel good. But, you know, that's the ripple effect, isn't it? That you're creating in your culture at work, it sounds like.
And I guess in the PT world, you're absolutely right. I can't lift that weight for them. I can't do that move for them. They have to do that, whether or not I'll have been involved in that process, but I can't. In the PM world, yeah, I can write your report for you. I can submit your financials. I can do all of that for you. You know, I won't do that, but you know, that's what I could do. But ultimately, in the PT world, where it's even more rewarding, and people have to take that strength, and you know, they have to do it. You know, it's not a case of, well, I'll tell you what, I'll just lift that and just say you did it. It's not like that. They have to take that ownership and that control. And seeing someone step outside of the comfort zone, try it, fail, come back, try it, fail, come back, try it, fail, do it. It's really, really just so powerful and strong.
Yeah. And it sounds like you have learned within like both areas to hold that space.
Yeah.
And to help people see that you are allowed to make mistakes, because that is how you learn. It's not, because I think, you know, I can think back to jobs I've had before where I've had managers that do micromanage, and actually there's very little trust there. So because there's no trust there, then unconsciously you don't trust yourself. It's almost like you are planting this trust in people, and then they are kind of going, oh, well, Craig trusts me, so maybe I can trust myself, and then it goes from there, right?
Yeah, well, I had a conversation last week actually with one of our new assistant project managers, he's so ambitious, just wants to get involved, wants to do stuff. But I've also got another project manager who isn't too keen to offload stuff. So I had a conversation that basically just said, look, give James the work. He wants to do it. He'll make mistakes. He absolutely will mistakes, because he has no idea what he's doing. He's brand new. He doesn't know the systems, but he wants to try. Let him try. He's going to take that workload off you. If he ends up failing, we'll teach him. I'll teach him. I'll step in, you know, so it won't impact what you do. And we're not giving him anything that's going to, you know, it's not going to hurt anybody. It's not going to bring the business down, but it's going to allow him to grow. And, you know, you never know. He might pick this up and absolutely fly. Let him try. Just don't hold back. Let him try. Let him go. You know, and ultimately, if something happens, I'm more than happy to take the heat. And I do that quite regularly with our directors, because if I'm going to give somebody that ability to make the mistakes, I'm not going to then point the finger and say, well, I don't know, he made that mistake. That's what's on him. You know, you can't do that as a leader. You've got to, or a coach, you've got to be able to have, they've got to know you've got their back. Yeah. And I think that, again, is really powerful. As long as they've got the confidence to fail, the chances are 90% of the time they succeed, but that 10% of the time when they do fail, it's just that learning point, and they're happy to learn and happy to just, you know, really challenge themselves to step out of their comfort zone. Because if you don't have that confidence to fail, and everyone's paranoid because, you know, I'm going to get the fingers pointed, no one in that environment is going to grow ever. You know, that's the thing.
I absolutely love that, because I think what you're doing is creating psychological safety for people to fail, and it's okay. Because I mean, let's face it, when we're talking about change, most people don't change because they fear failing. And the irony is, it's like, well, no, you're gonna fail. You absolutely categorically are gonna fail, and it's okay. And I've got your back. And it's, you know, the end of the world isn't gonna come if you fail, because we're gonna adapt. And actually, some of the greatest inventions in history have come from perceived failure. So it's like you can't lose. Ultimately, you've got to embrace the change, embrace the mistakes.
Yeah, but then I think if we're talking about my change, when I was younger, when I played sport, when I was younger, I think I had a fear of failure and a fear of success.
Yes,
you know, it almost, for me, when I played rugby, we had a fantastic team. Really, really good team. We did so well, but I was I was the kicker for the team, so I had quite an important role in there. And I had seasons where I didn't miss any. Then I had seasons when I missed almost all of them. And it was a horrible place to be because I had a real fear of failure. So I never pushed myself outside of my comfort zone within the games. So I never tried anything just off the cuff. Very rarely. It would always be, let's just do the sensible thing. But I also had a bit of a fear of success, which I never really realized till I look back. And it was never a kind of like, let's really see where we go. Like the success was brilliant. It came naturally, but I think I almost drove a behavior of sort of mediocrity, and I was perfectly capable in that average area. And I think it's only really when I stopped playing rugby and then sort of moving through the rest of my sports career, my kind of coaching career, that I thought, well, actually, it is that mindset of, look, I'm going to fail. And quite often with the training I do in the gym, I feel a lot. But it's about, well, actually, I've got an opportunity in the next session to make that up. Whereas sometimes in rugby, I had that mindset of, but if I fail now and we lose that game, that could be something significantly gone. But and it's maybe because it was more of a team scenario then. I didn't want to let the other 14 guys down. Whereas if I fail on myself, I'm failing on myself, but I'm able to grow out of that. But that again comes down to the team environment, which is maybe why I'm more like that now with the team that I've got in the PM world. Makes sense. Because I don't want them to feel like they'll let anybody down by failing, that they will, they'll have that support there and verbalize it. It's back then we just, as a team of 14, 15, 20 blokes, you didn't really say, oh yeah, you're like, don't worry, try whatever you like, and if it goes wrong, it goes wrong. Because if it went wrong, you got absolutely hammered, in possibly a friendly way, but depending on how you take it and not understanding how I would have taken that, it was horrendous when you got absolutely nailed for doing something wrong, to the point where I was like, well, in that case, I'm not going to try to do something that little bit extra.
I was going to say, what comes up for me when you say that is like the control and pressure almost stunts you going that next level. And it's the other thing that comes up for me that I think is a really interesting one, especially in the rugby world, because it's very masculine. It'd be interesting to know your take on, almost that fearing of that failure, but also fearing the success of like, can I handle it? Can I kind of do this? How much do you think like being, because part of it is about being vulnerable, isn't it? To kind of go, actually, I might, fail here, and that people have got your back, as opposed to, oh, well, you've got to do it and you can't fail. There's huge amounts of pressure there. How has vulnerability played into this for you, do you think?
I think, in all honesty, when I played rugby up until I was, probably early 30s, well, late 20s, early 30s, vulnerability was exactly it, but it was never discussed, really. It wasn't an open discussion. I'm in all aspects of my life, whether it's be at work, whether it be in the gym, because people need to understand how you're feeling. I just think that vulnerability for me, I felt very vulnerable, but would never verbalize it, because you're right, it's a bit of a macho environment. I don't know what it's like now. I've been out of it now for probably 15 years, so it may be the same, maybe not, but there's a lot more talk around sort of mental health and how people handle these sort of things, and understanding everybody's own persona and ability to deal with stuff. And even if you look at the way the England teams and the international teams are done, they've all got psychologists in there. They all understand how people work. They all know where the strengths are, where their weaknesses are. Good managers will always know who needs an arm around them, who needs to be told they're doing really well, who needs to be told they need to try harder. I was always somebody who needed the arm round, and sometimes now I even tell my boss at work, look, I'm someone I need an arm rounders every now and then to say I'm doing a good job, because if you don't tell us, I'm going to think I'm not, and then I'll start overthinking that now, and I am able to bring myself back from that because I know that's who I am. But I would rather that they know that needs to happen, rather than me sitting in the background just panicking about that sort of thing.
And I just think that's
sorry.
No, it's well, I'm getting like animated because it's such an important message. Do you know what I mean? That like vulnerability isn't weakness, and I think in very masculine environments, and still like in workplaces, it's like, oh, well, I can't show how I really feel because I fear appearing weak, as opposed to, ironically, if you hide how you feel, it actually weakens you.
Yeah.
Because it whatever you hide then turns into shame, because like, and shame can't survive in the light. Like once you bring it out in the open and go, actually, this is how I'm feeling, then it's our human nature to want to connect and want to go, oh, well, how can I support you? And I love also what you said, that, and it's something I know that we spoke about earlier, which we can maybe talk a bit more around, the fact that you've done the work and the reflection to know yourself at such a deeper level that you can actually say to your boss, look, to get the best out of me, this is what I need. And he probably went, oh, like, thank you for sharing that with me so that I can give that to you.
Yeah, we did some emotional intelligence testing at work. I say testing, I'm not sure if that's the right phrase, but
yeah, like assessment and training.
Yeah, and I've done, and I think over the past sort of 6-7 years at work, with us getting more involved in their wellbeing program, I guess also trying to understand myself how to best to deliver work with the clients, and also try to better understand how they think as well, because every single person in the PT world who comes for work, comes to train, isn't always doing it for the same reasons. They may come in or with the same reason of, I want to lose a bit of weight, or I want to get a bit fitter. The chances are there's numerous reasons behind that, but then they don't always know it either. I think me understanding where I was in that emotional intelligence thing, it was really scary. Getting the results from that, I looked at that and I was just like, this, like, what does this mean? Does this mean I'm actually really bad at this? Does this mean I've got no emotional intelligence? Why am I not scoring at the top of every single one of these? But then when we went through the assessment, and because we did it as a group, it was a kind of, do you want to open up and tell people where you feel you're strong and where it's come out strong and where it's come weak? Now that was one of the most tiring days I've ever done, because there was 5 of us, all quite fresh in this leadership role, talking about where they felt they were strong, where they felt they were weak, what they needed from other people. But it was one of the best days from a leadership perspective we've had. But I went into that initially looking and trying to understand myself and thinking, well, this isn't great. This is where I think I should be. But now that I know exactly where I am strong, where my energy goes, where I need to put my energy, I'm able to dial that up and down. And I find that it's a challenge, because you do, whatever your emotional intelligence is, you will revert to type, especially in stressful situations. You'll revert down to that. But understanding that and being able to sort of realize that and just go, well, actually, you just need to boost this up a little bit. And I had a really interesting conversation with some of our main leadership team in a separate conversation, where I was the standout person in a completely different area in emotional intelligence, where if you imagine, if it was on a bar scale, everybody was up here and I was about there. And what was actually said was, that is really, really important to have somebody in that area, because they're going to have a different viewpoint, they're going to have a different empathy, they're going to have a different skill set, they're going to be able to build different interpersonal relationships, and all of what I loved about it, although being a commercial manager and a manager of all the finances who should be into all the detail, I'm not into the detail. But I'm very much into the bigger picture and understanding people, and I'm a bit more empathetic. And where I initially read the results of the assessment, I was like, this isn't great. But then when I actually saw where I was strong, I was actually quite proud of the areas that I was strong in. And those are all the areas that when I was younger, I probably didn't really focus on. Whereas now I think I allow my energy to go into there naturally and really boost those areas, but also know where I've got to go. And if you don't understand yourself and how you tick and what makes you work and what gets you motivated, what doesn't get you motivated, what's going to keep you consistent, you really, without that, you're not going to be able to progress. And it's a scary thing to know yourself. Everybody tries to read other people and go, oh, they're like that, they're like that. But if someone says, well, what you like? Oh, I don't want to,
totally.
What do you really like? To really find out what makes you tick. It might not be a comfortable place, because you might have your own little picture in your head of where you are. But to find out the knowledge side of it is just hugely important. I think it was Nelson Mandela said something around knowledge being the power, or education and knowledge is, the power to change the world.
Yeah.
So that knowledge and education is the power to change your world as well,
Yes.
individually. Yeah. So, it's that knowledge of yourself will just allow you to grow wherever you are on all of those scales, wherever you feel weak at, or you feel strong at. Knowing those is what's going to make you grow. Otherwise, you're just guessing, really. You're just kind of like, I hope this is going to work today. So
I love that.
Chance,
there's so many sound bites you're creating here, Craig. It's unreal, right? Because I talk a lot about like helping clients play in their zone of genius, and I think to play in your zone of genius energetically, in the way that you feel, in the way that you think, the way that you show up, the way that you live your life, ultimately that's all about knowing yourself first, knowing what you are naturally good at. And I think, to your point, what's really interesting, especially in like a group setting like that, we naturally compare ourselves to others, and we kind of think, oh, well, I should be, and I think the word that I always say to people is look out for the word should, and then ask yourself, should you? Where's that coming from? Because what I heard in what you shared there is that when you started to really gain that knowledge and insight and kind of go, oh, right, okay, I might be like lower in these areas, but actually that means I'm in this very powerful area here where I'm actually in a zone of my own. Yeah. And that as a team environment brings a huge amount of value to the team, because if everyone was good at one thing, then as a team, you're weaker. Yeah, absolutely. And what actually came out of it is because my boss was involved in all of those discussions, and she came in is quite new to the business, didn't really know any of us. A lot of the people who she brought into that group had been with the company in that particular area for years. We're talking most people have been in between 10 and 20 years in the same place, and she'd been with the business but never been in the Newcastle area. So she was trying to really, I think, as you would as a boss, you want to learn what your employees are good at. But now she understands the bits that I'm good at, and she really kind of puts me in that area. So when you're talking about playing into the, your area of genius, I would never put genius on there, but where I'm strong, she hasn't thought, right, you're not great in here, so I'm going to spend the time trying to bring all of that up. What she's done is, you are really good here, so I'm going to make sure we use as much of that as possible, but being aware of the bits that are down here, so that you're just aware and you can bring them up. But let's absolutely use the bits that you're good at. So that's what I try and do with some of my PT clients, with my project managers. If someone is absolutely fantastic in one area, why would you want to say, right, well, I'm going to give you this bit over here because that'll just bring up where you're a bit weaker, unless that's where they really want to from a learning perspective. But if somebody's absolutely fantastic at one thing, why would you not use somebody, capitalize on it?
Yeah, absolutely. It just makes no sense, and you're never going to get everybody at that one level. You want people absolutely up here in every bit, or else you just don't have that balance.
Well, no, and what I love as well about that is it's a win-win, because by actually identifying, like, I see that you're really good in this area, and so I see that there's an opportunity where you can play in your zone of genius, which is, and it's funny, isn't it? I think for everybody, they go, I wouldn't call myself a genius, but I think what it is, because we're seen as like, oh, well, I don't want to be big-headed, but it's not. It's standing in your power and truth. And so you can not only feel energized yourself, because this is something that makes you feel good and lights you up and your energy's high, you're then going to radiate that to the rest of your team. So collectively, you're probably going to like benefit as well. So there's kind of no downside, really.
No, and when you're in those areas where all your strengths are and where your energy is, it's a good place. It's a happy place. It's a fun place to be. If somebody then shoves you in the bits that we want to bring you up on there, that's where you're a bit weaker, or really want you to be in there.
Yeah,
it's not a pleasant place. Like I'm like that in the gym. There's certain parts of my body that when I'm training, absolutely love it. It's where I'm strong. It's where I enjoy it, and I will spend loads of time. I do force myself to do in the areas that I'm weak, because naturally in the physical world, those bits are where you really, sometimes you do need to put some focus. But don't enjoy being in there.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
I will, the energy side of it is in there, but it's the acceptance that I need to do that little bit at the bottom. So it might sound a little bit counterintuitive on there, but on the physical side, you know, if I'm certain parts of my body where when I'm training, I think, well, actually, I need to do that. Actually, cardio, for example, I don't do enough of that. So if anybody's that knows me, that's listening to this, will probably have a chuckle at that. But you know, my energies will go into certain bits, whereas certain days I'll get up and go, oh, I don't want to do this session, but I'll get out and do it because it's part of what I do and it's how I'm kind of wired now. Whereas at certain other days I could wake up tired and go, oh, it's that day. That's great. I'm up, I'm out, I'm done. So yeah, there's that, and I would look in that when I'm doing PT clients as well, as to really see what really gets them going. And you could spend, you know, half the session working on the bits that really get them there, and just a little bit in the middle, just to get up that little weakness bit, you know. Unless we're looking at people who are training for like sort of specific sports, you know, anything like that, that really you do need to focus on that. But what you'll tend to find is when you get people who are training for events or specific, you know, sports teams, they've already got that little bit of a mentality of, I know what I need to do. And then it's an easier discussion to have, that we need to spend more time on this whilst we will maximize this bit as well. So it's just that different environment and that different mindset.
No, I love that. I love that, because what comes up for me when you say that is, and energetically, right? This is like physically how you feel energetically, but also your thoughts, your feelings, your behavior. If you're already tapping into that feel good, then actually that gives you fuel to attack the bits that maybe are uncomfortable. So it's almost, you know, because I often talk about, and I know my practice has been over the last few years, getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. Because that's where the growth happens, in that space. But what I'm hearing you just say, which is, you know, a really good thing, I think, a message to say, is that if you identify what lights you up and then give yourself full permission to play in that space, and then add in something that's uncomfortable, you're more likely to succeed at it because your energy is high.
And the likelihood is that uncomfortable bit will also improve the good bit. So rather than looking at it like it's a punishment, you need to do this bit. It's more a case of, you do this bit, and although you're good here, you're going to be really good here.
So like a maximizer.
And you know, it's all linked. You know, if you bring your weaknesses up a little bit, it's only going to help with your strengths as well. But you need to play in that strength bit as much as you can, because that's where your energy is going to go. That's where people are going to see it. That's where people are going to, you know, they'll notice it. You know, you'll be able to see it in people when they're really. I see it when you talk. Anyone who talks passionately about stuff, you'll see the difference. You know, you'll know. You'll probably deal with it a lot, where someone who's really passionate about something, they get animated. You know, their eyes light up. You know, they start smiling a lot more. They start talking a bit more. In fact, probably talk too much. You know, in there. But then if you start talking about the bit that they're not great at, it's a bit more of a, you know, shoulder slumped. You know, it's really quite poor. But then if you're able to get the fact that, you know, bringing that into the really passionate bit, you know, and then making sure you use that passion, you know, the energy you get from that will only help in there. If you're never playing that passionate bit, all you're going to have is that low level horrible energy where you're just going to be constantly shoulders down. Why am I doing this? What's the point?
It's exactly that. And I think as a coach, be that PT or mindset coach, you know, whatever, we mirror that back, because often you can't view yourself, and it's someone being able to watch out for that and go, wow, did you know your eyes totally lit up when you started talking about this? And then people often think, did I? And it's like, yeah, you come alive, you come online. So what if you gave yourself permission to do more of the same? And then it's like energy. And that's what I love about, you know, I mean, core energy coaching is the fundamental part of what I do, because everything is energy around the thoughts, the feelings, and your behaviors. So if you have someone that wants to, and that's curious to know themselves at a deeper level, and then start to identify, this lights me up. Okay, what if we did more of that then? What can I? Yeah, you can. You've got a conscious choice, right?
But we don't always tell people that either. You know, we'll listen to people talk really passionately about stuff, and it'll all sink in. It'll be like, oh, that's great. But when you actually tell people and say that, you ever say, God, you must be like well into this, you're like, you're all over this. It's so good. Your voice is changing, everything. For someone, it just makes them realize, like you said, it just more, yeah, you're right. It's absolutely right.
Well, it's so affirming, isn't
Yeah.
it? And I think that then mirrors it back. And that, I think, is back to what you mentioned about empowering people, because it's like, we can't all be passionate about the same things. We all bring something special to the table. And in my experience, I think when people really start to identify what that is and then play towards it, they let go of the other stuff, and then they can start to communicate outward, like, this is what lights me up. So if you've got something that involves this, this, and this, I'd love to get involved. And then people are actually thankful, because it's not a guessing game. It's like, you know what lights you up.
Yeah.
Brilliant. That helps me out tenfold,
Oh, well, yeah, absolutely. And I just think passion sort of just supports passion, doesn't it? Whether or not it's the same passion, but you can just, it brings it out. And, you could have two people passionate about two completely different things talking to each other, but if you would have observed that from a third party, there'd be like probably hands all over the place. Everyone they'd be really quite intense. And it's just, I just think when you get somebody talking about it, just to sit back and just listen, it's quite just so strong for you as well to go, I've got the same thing.
I think, when we first chatted, right, I mean, it was evident what you were passionate about. And I think you can bathe in that energy almost, because you kind of think to yourself, wow, it's high vibrating energy. When somebody speaks passionately about something they care about, it's high frequency, and you can pick that up. It's not even logical. It's sensory that you can kind of go, wow, it's I often use the analogy, it's like people are lighthouses, like their light is just, and it's almost like your energy introduces you before you speak. You can feel somebody in like the way that they enter the room, and that's what you said as well about, that's an intrinsic part of knowing yourself at a deep level, of actually doing that inquiry, reflection, investigation, and go, this is who I am, this is what I stand for, this is what I care about, this is what I'm passionate about. You can then go out into the world, like, through those gates, and then you can maximize what that natural passion is. And it only builds from there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I love that. Oh, so many sound bites, Craig. So many sound bites. I guess I just wanted to kind of give a summary. We might have to do a part 2, because I know we were going to talk about your injury and how that kind of played in, but conscious of time, maybe that's a part 2. We'll do. But when you think about change then for you, and I know like we've covered a few different bits, but what do you think, how do you perceive change now? Like when you compare like how you saw it maybe when you were playing rugby, and like the beginning, like when you were saying you're in your 20s, and how you perceive change now, how has that changed for you, if that makes sense?
What interesting question, because it was so long ago now, to think what think what it was like back then. I don't think I fear change anymore. Whereas I think I'm quite adaptable. I think I'm quite resilient to stuff. But that's not a natural thing. I have worked on that in the past. I've tried to understand, I do like routine. I love routine. I think it's the best way to stay consistent. It's how I train, it's how I eat, it's how I do a lot of things, is in that routine side. But now I'm able to react to change better. But it's around, I think it's just being able to change the journey, change the route around change, managing change. So I think, it's about acknowledging that it's going to happen, not being scared about it, and just taking a breath at that point to say, right, this has happened. What do I need to do? Like when we talk about the sporting side of it, but I went through so many different things, and it was normally injuries that caused me to change, or change my focus. And it was because at that point I couldn't do what I wanted to do at that point. So I found a different way. I had to change. I had to just revise my thinking, really. So I think change it's just something that I'm not scared of.
Yeah.
It's always going to be a lesson. It's always going to be a challenge, and it's always going to happen. It's
Yeah.
just being able to see it, understand how you're initially going to react to it,
Yeah.
understand how you should react to it,
Yeah.
and then putting the steps in place to make sure that whatever that change is, it becomes for the better. And
Yeah.
it might not, some real, there could be some quite horrendous things that change, life-changing events. Whether it be, it could be anything in there that's really, really quite significant. But again, at that point, it's an acceptance that, well, you can't change that. That's happened. It's what are you going to do to change yourself, change your mindset, change your outlook, change your goal. And that sounds like it's oversimplifying it, but it's not. Yeah. It's an acceptance that if the change has happened, it's happened. You can't go back. You can't make it happen in a different way. Yeah. That's where you're at. Where do you want to be? And if you're able to take that time to reflect, stop, breathe, and just go, right, now this is today. Yesterday is where it is. Where do I want to be? How do I set my goals to be where I want to be? Yeah. Where do I set my goals for the rest of the day, the next 2 days, the next 10 days? And it's around that. I think for me, it's just not being afraid of it, but knowing it's going to happen. Don't expect to get through life without change happening. It's going to happen. Yeah. We're constantly changing, aren't we?
We are. And I love what you said, that the overarching message that I think you beautifully described there is life isn't happening to you. It's kind of happening for you, through you. Yeah. And I think that simple shift, and I think simplifying things, I'm all about simplification, because I think as human beings, we complicate a lot. And I think it's right what you say, because it sounds like through the reflection that you've done and all of the changes that you've gone through, that's actually created your resilience by leaning into the change and seeing it as a lesson, embracing it and going, right, what did I learn? What did it strengthen in me? And I think this is like the whole basis of this podcast, is to change the way that we look at change, because I think we all have imposter syndrome. And I mean, and I think also, Craig, like hilariously, this is one of the best episodes I think I've recorded. So, you know what I mean? In terms of like content and the messages and getting these things out there, it's full of nuggets. So, I have a sneaky feeling this is going to be first of many podcast interviews that people are going to contact you on, because it's back to the passion and the life experience radiates, and it flows from you. You're not actively having to overthink this. This is lived experience that you're sharing. So
yeah, and I think we discussed it when you first introduced the idea, and I was like, well, I haven't really gone through a massive change. I haven't done this whole big life change. What I've done is I've kind of evolved through understanding myself, understanding what I've done. But I think being able to, like I've said, being able to understand myself and do that, it's almost preventative. What I'm able to do, I'm able to practice what I do. I'm able to adapt, and significant kind of real life changing events. I would hope I would be prepared for if it happened. Touch wood, it never would. Yeah. But yeah, it's and I think we're talking about the simplifying things, and I hate to say things are simple, because a lot of people say, well, it's just not that simple, and it's from a quote from a movie. Can't remember which movie it is, and if he contacts us, I'm sure we can give him a credit. But essentially, it was like, life's not that simple. Well, it is. Life's not that simple, but things aren't. When someone says it's not that simple, well, it is really. The process is simple. Absolutely, the process is simple. The work you've got to put in, that's the hard bit.
Yes.
But the process for whatever that is, whether or not it's looking after your mental health, whether or not it's looking after your physical health, whether it's anything like that, the steps you need to take should be very, very simple. I don't overcomplicate any of the training that I do. You can look on Instagram and people will be doing all sorts, standing on Bosu balls, standing upside down, lifting weights on trampolines and all sorts. It's an overcomplication because it impresses people. No one's ever going to do it, but it makes it look really clever. But training wise, diet wise, even mental health to a degree, and I don't want to make this disparaging, is simple because the steps are simple. the work you have to do in the background per step can be very, very difficult.
Yeah.
But if you make your steps 5 weeks, 5 years, 10 years long, that's really, really difficult. If you make your steps the next 5 minutes, the next 5 hours, next 5 days, next 5 months, then the steps that you have to take and the process you go through is really, really simple because they're so short, and they should all be achievable. If you can't achieve them, you go and find out someone who can help you achieve them. And that's the simple step. Well, this is really hard. I don't know what I'm doing. Go and ask somebody, then they'll break it down. Then it becomes simple. Oh, right, now I know how to do it. And so when somebody says, well, it's just not that simple, you'll never do it. It's almost a case of someone going, right, you've given us permission now to give up.
Yeah,
right.
well,
You're right.
Make the
Far
excuse.
too hard. Yeah, it's far too hard. I'm going to accept that excuse. I'm not even going to try. You're right. It's not that simple. Whereas if somebody said, look, it is that simple, you're just going to have to work hard at it. If you want it enough, it is absolutely that simple. You're just going to have to put the work in on each and every other one of those steps to make sure it happens. But you have to want it. You have to really want it. And if you don't want it,
the drive.
You'll find out. Yeah, you'll find out, and then you're right. You won't achieve it because you never wanted it in the first place. Might be a nice idea, but
yeah, 100%. Yeah, no, it is. It's that, even just that one seed, though, it goes from limiting yourself, i.e., why even bother, right? Which is life's happening to me, looking at something and going, oh well, it's not possible, it's not achievable, so I'm just not even going to bother. As opposed to, and one of my favorite questions I ask myself and I pose to my clients is, okay, so what would this look like if it was simple? And by asking your brain that, your brain then looks for simplicity. And the simplicity is often, well, I'm just going to take that one step. And then when you take that one step, then another one appears, and then another, and then before you know where you are, you think, oh, it's like when I started this podcast, I had no clue. And I thought, oh, it's going to be difficult. I need loads of equipment, and I nearly talked myself out of it. And then I just thought, no, hold on. What would this look like if it was simple? There's an app called Anchor, and it's free. There's this, and I know how to do this. And then before you know where you are, like there it is, because you're looking for the simplicity. You're not, I think as soon as you tell yourself it's complicated, you won't do it. You'll stop yourself. For sure.
Yeah, because a lot of goals can look hugely intimidating when you put them out there. If you're quite a big picture visual person like me, who looks at that end point and just looks at it and goes, that is massive. To be able to do something like that is insane. To really, it just makes no sense to do that.
Yeah.
But if you then think, well, actually, that's where I really, really want to be, but I'm not going to do that unless I start now. And if I don't start now, it's never going to happen. So let's start now, and I don't know, by the end of tomorrow, I'll have decided, I'll have broken down the goals, I'll have worked out what that needs to be. By the end of the week, I'll have started doing all of those. But then by the end of the month, we'll be 4 weeks in to where I want to be. And then after that month, you can go, actually, well, let's just see, where have I actually come from the start of that month? And you reflect on that. Then that just becomes a rolling procedure where the steps are going. And before you know it, you're halfway through that goal. The big picture is still there. It probably looks slightly less intimidating because you're halfway there. You're looking back to see where you've come from. You can give yourself that. You need to give yourself the credit from coming that far. And and it won't be linear. There's absolutely no chance. You're going to fail so many times on that route. But again, if you want it, then you'll take that failure. You'll step to the side. You'll change it. You'll go again. You'll step to the side. You'll go again. You might have to take 5 or 6 steps back and reassess where you need to be, but you've got to reflect and basically say, right, well, this is the change. I've had to change now because this has happened. I'm going to have to move on, or else I'm just going to stagnate in the middle. Then 2 years down the line, I'm going to go, God, I wish I'd done that. Like, on that podcast, 2 years down, you could have just went, I really wish I'd started that. It's so simple to do. Why did I not start that?
Oh, totally. Yeah, it's just starting. That's the thing. I think we talk ourselves out of just starting because we can get so overwhelmed by, well, I want to be there, and actually I'm here, and then you see in the gap in between, and then you kind of talk yourself out of it, as opposed to, and I often talk about detaching yourself from the outcome. Like, you've got the vision and the direction, and that's, energizing you of like, oh, that would be amazing if that happens. But then you're like, well, it's never going to happen unless I give myself the permission just to try.
Yeah.
And I think that's almost like just starting the wheels, isn't it? Just starting turning like the wheels. So just to bring this, because we could talk forever, Craig.
Yes.
We're gonna have to do another one. But people who want to come and find you, and I know you're writing blogs and like putting content out there for people who want to physically train, but you're also doing the mental health side. And I'll make sure obviously that we put all of the links in the show notes and everything. Where can people come find you?
Yeah, so Instagram, it's the Total Coach, and it's the totalcoach.co.uk as well on the website. So what I'm trying to do there is I'm just trying to pull together. So I'm doing a few blogs on things just around my experiences and also some just quick guides. And I'm trying to develop a few steady, easy, downloadable guides. All of it's free. I'm just want it out there. I just want to. It's my experiences, how I see things like well-being, mindfulness. There's some dead simple training tips on there. There's I'm just trying to build that content up, you know, and it's trying. I want to get as many people to see this stuff as possible, and whether or not they take 3 or 4 little nuggets from all of this stuff and use it, that's great. And if anybody wants to talk about it in more depth, absolutely get in touch. But really, it's just around spreading the stuff that I've learned, what I know works for me, what I know works for other people, and just trying to get that out there. So, you know, it's all there for anybody to get at, you know, and then again, if anybody wanted to discuss anything direct, you know, please just drop us a line off there on Instagram or either via the website. Happy to have further discussions. So
great.
Yeah.
Well, I've loved this conversation, Craig. Like, thank you so much for, you know, stepping into something that was potentially quite uncomfortable, but it just shows that actually this may well be part of your zone of genius. So there you go.
We'll see. Yeah, it's been absolutely brilliant. I have to say it's been really, really good, because this is outside of my comfort zone doing this. So maybe if there'd been a room of 3,000 people behind you, it might have been a different story.
Well, that might be a vision of the future. Who knows?
It's been one of the visions. It's been one of the visions, I can tell you. So we'll start with one like we have now, and we'll just see where that one goes from there. But no, it's been absolutely brilliant. Thank you for having us on.
Oh, absolutely. Thanks, Craig.
No problem.